Vice Chair.
He said he would be joining a little bit late.
Okay. Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly, Chairwoman.
I'm here.
We have 4 so far. We have quorum. Also in attendance, we have Alderman Patricia Klee, Alderman at Large Alicia Gregg, Alderman Richard Dowd, our Alderman at Large and President Lori Wilshire. We have Alderman Tim Sennett. We have Tim Cummings, Administrative Services Director. We have Doria Brown, our Energy Manager, and Matthew Sullivan, our Community and Planning Director.
Great.
I think that's everyone.
Okay. We will start with public comment.
Lori Ortolano, Nashua. Just a couple things. I noticed we only have one person interviewing for Board of Health, and I'm wondering, and I didn't see the whole packet, I'll look online, how many people applied for that new position with the Board of Health? I thought there might be more than a single candidate looking to participate with the Health Board. As far as the new resolutions, it looks like you have some regarding the use of electronic devices during meetings. I support this to the extent that I think there's a lot of additional and extra phone stuff going on during meetings that should be kept at bay, and everyone should be focused on what's going on. Virtual meeting participation, you know, I would like to see people's cameras on. I do think it's important. I also think if you have members who are attending by virtual meeting and they can't participate in non-public session, and then they go and vote on stuff that night that was based on the non-public session, that really isn't right. And I watched that happen with the 14 Mulberry Street. You spent an hour and a half in non-public session. There was several participants on Zoom. And then when you came out of non-public session and you went into your regular meeting to do a vote, a member voted in favor of Mulberry Street, not having participated in the non-public session at all. And I have to say, I don't really like that. If you can't be present for something that's being voted on that night where there's a non-public session, I think it's really a poor form to vote for something. And the compensation ordinance, you know, I'm just going to say this. I think the board itself right now is struggling with attendance. I don't think there's great attendance with this board. And you gave yourselves all a pretty big raise last year. And there's a lot of people that seem to conflict out or can't be here or have to be on Zoom or have other commitments. And, you know, I see some regular people who are, I would say, you know, carrying the load. And I see a lot who aren't. So I think if you're not here, whether it's regular meetings or special meetings, I think they should all count, because there's a lack of participation in special meetings, and you happen to run as many special meetings as you do regular, possibly more. And a lot of people don't come, board members, elected members don't show up, and they don't count against their time, and I think they should count against their time. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? State your name and town or city.
City to town.
My name's Katie. I live in Hooksett, but I have a store on 100 Main Street. I'm here tonight to speak on secondhand dealer laws. I'm basically representing the entire hobby space of secondhand dealers. You know, Erica from the Relentless Dragon couldn't be here. Michelle from Bizarre Games, I've spoken with her. I've also spoken with Gary, who's the owner of the coin shop just up the road from me. I've spoken to a couple other secondhand shops as well, and we're pretty much all in agreement that something needs to be done. My store gets to celebrate today being here for 1 year in Nashua, but I'm going to be straight with you guys. If I didn't just completely disregard your law every day of the life, I wouldn't be here for a year. Gary up in Main Street said the same thing as well, that they can't basically function the way it is as well. So I'm hoping we can come to some kind of agreement where we meet in the middle on this, because right now the whole hobby space is in agreement, like we can't function or be here under the current law. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none, communications?
There is none.
We received a communication.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We received a communication before the meeting from Alderman Johnson relating to Zoom meetings. And there's two separate communications, both about ADA requirements. So I'd like to accept them into the record. Place
There's
them
no
on file.
objection. Okay. Interviews.
We have Board of Health, Christian Jimenez, social worker, 21 Forest Hills Drive, Nashua, New Hampshire, 3060. Does not have like term limits expire.
It's Lori. Yep.
Okay, yep.
All right. I see that Madam President is here to introduce her pick for Board of Health. So we'll start with there, and then we'll switch over to Mr. Jimenez.
Sorry. Excuse me, thank you. So I have with me tonight Christian Jimenez, who is a licensed social worker. And he's got quite an extensive background. He's been in social work for 12 years now, and he's got a pretty impressive resume. He's done a lot of things with kids. He's done things in Nashua, out of Nashua. You know, lifetime membership at a local Boys and Girls Club. You can't hate that.
No.
Somebody who does that, so, excuse me. I know that he's qualified to do this, and he's interested in the Board of Health. He's interested in, you know, he's eager to bring his clinical expertise and passion to the Board of Health. So I'm going to leave it up to him to introduce himself.
So as she mentioned, I'm Christian Jimenez. I saw the opening for the Board of Health, and as I was just telling her, I'm getting more involved in Nashua. I recently am on the board for Little League, coaching 2 of my little kids' teams in Little League, just trying to be more involved. And so when I saw the opening for the social work, I've been a social worker for, as she said, since 2014, since graduating from college. So I saw a chance and opportunity to kind of get more involved with Nashua and however I could. So I have a lot of experience as a social worker, so I think I can bring some ideas or my expertise to help in some ways.
Thank you. Before I open it up to questions from the committee, there was a question that I also had in terms of how many resumes we would have gotten, because I think we have 2 seats still open for the social worker. No?
We filled the nurse. It was just a
It was
nurse
just
and a
an-
social
Okay,
worker.
so
Yeah.
did you receive any other, or was this the only one?
This was the only one,
Director Bagley
and a
said
good
that-
one.
Yes, okay. Just wanted to get that answered. Okay, great. So I'll open up to questions from the committee. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jimenez, for putting in. Where do you currently work? Can you, for the record?
Yep, Wanderlust Therapeutic Services.
And did the owner of the company give you some advice to apply for it?
I mean, he just showed me that the position was open. That was it.
Okay. All right. That's all I got. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Alderman Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for applying.
Thank you.
What do you feel you're going to bring to the board?
As I mentioned, I have a lot of expertise in social work. I've recently started doing counseling and a lot of other things. But, like I said, when there was a social worker position, I feel, in that area, I have, knowledge that I can bring.
Thank you.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not on this committee, but I was hoping that you could take a moment to speak about the relationship with your work as a licensed social worker and how it relates to the arena of public health and the work that our public health department does, because you'll be working side by side with them should you become a member of the Board of Health. And I'd just like to get a little bit of your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, so when it comes to, like you said, the arena of public health, I feel I play a big part in the community, and I'm out in the community helping families, whether that be, underprivileged, looking for housing, looking for jobs, mentoring young kids, things like that. I feel that's, a big part of the, the public health. as I mentioned, I also do counseling at Wanderlust. So, just different aspects that can help, help the people of Nashua.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. So you mentioned that you're doing counseling. Is counseling most of what you're doing now, or are you still very much involved as a social worker?
No, I mean, forensic social work is what I do primarily. Counseling, case management is just a small part. I also do court investigations, but mainly, definitely forensic social work takes up the majority of my hours.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? It's quite an interesting title.
Forensic part, it's through the court system. So most of my clients have court cases, and so I am hired by the attorneys to help their clients with, like I said, whether that be find jobs, find housing, take classes, parenting classes. Sometimes I supervise visits, DCF visits. So most of my work is trying to help these parents, gain custody back of their children.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? None? Okay. We're good? All right. I will be taking up your nomination in a bit. Thanks for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Up next, we have Arts Commission.
I don't think we have the person, so
I don't think so. I can't see who's sitting right there, but I think that's Lori Odolana.
it is.
Get a large podium in the way. Okay. We were slated to interview someone for Arts Commission, but I don't see him in the audience, so we will reschedule him to a later date. Application to license hawkers, peddlers, itinerant vendors license.
There is none.
Appointments by the mayor. There are none. Oh, well, I guess.
No. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the following appointment to the Board of Health as a social worker member, Christian Jimenez, with a term to expire December 31st, 2027.
You want to take them individually?
Well, we can't take Michael McDowell.
Can't take Michael and the other one. We can take
And
them
Stephanie's not, well, we can do Stephanie because it's a reappointment, but
individually.
I don't know if we'll get, all right. Also to recommend the following reappointment to the Greeley Park Advisory Committee, Stephanie Valentine, with a term to expire June 13th, 2029.
You've heard the motion. It's discussion on that motion. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 ayes. That passes.
Okay.
Point of order. Well, Alderman Lopez abstained. Should he state why he abstained from, because?
Yeah, I would say so.
Because
Should.
is he abstaining from both votes, on both
No,
people,
I'm
just
abstaining
one?
because the last guy works the same place I do.
Yeah, but I think that needs to be in the record.
I mean, probably should have asked to split them because I would think you'd want to vote on the other one, or no?
Passed anyway.
Do I?
You passed anyways, he said.
Okay, that's fine, whatever.
So 3 yeas, 1 abstention, and the abstention was due to a work conflict.
Yep.
Okay, great. Unfinished business.
Yeah,
There's-
there's none.
New business resolutions.
All right, we have R-26-036, adopting the commercial property assessed clean energy and resiliency C-PACER program. I'd like to make a motion for final passage, to recommend final passage.
Okay, you've heard the motion. I believe Doria Brown is here to speak on it. Want to come up?
Good evening. I just wanted to give an overview on the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Resiliency Program. C-PACER is a financing tool that helps commercial property owners fund energy efficiency, renewable energy, water conservation, resiliency improvements through long-term private financing. One of the most important things to understand about this is that the program is not city-funded. This will not use taxpayer dollars. The financing comes entirely from private lenders, while the state program is administered through the New Hampshire Business Finance Authority. The types of projects that would qualify for this program include commercial buildings, or the eligible properties include commercial buildings, industrial facilities, multifamily housing with 5 or more units, nonprofits, and agricultural properties. The eligible projects are HVAC, lighting improvements and controls, insulation and windows, solar and battery storage, water efficiency upgrades, and flood protection and climate resiliency improvements. This makes the program flexible enough to support both energy projects and a broader a broader group of infrastructure and resiliency projects. Financing is really unique. Instead of traditional loans tied directly to building owners, the financing is attached to the property itself through a voluntary property assessment. The assessment is used to generate a lien on the property, and it's similar to a property tax obligation. Because the lien is attached to the property, lenders have stronger security, repayment terms can be longer, financing is often more affordable, and larger infrastructure projects become more feasible. Another important feature is that if the property changes ownership, the repayment obligation transfers with the building rather than the original owner. So what would the city's role in this be? If the city were to choose to participate in the program, their role would be to adopt a resolution opting into the state program, enter into an agreement with New Hampshire Business Finance Authority, which is written into the resolution. That group would administer the program. When the Finance Authority does all the assessments and work related to the program, the city will review the projects for compliance and coordinate the lien on the property. That is the spiel. Are there any questions?
I have a couple. So you sit on Energy and Environment with me. I think this is an interesting program. I assume that this sort of aligns with some of the energy goals and Imagine Nashua plans that we have in Nashua.
Absolutely. This would help assist the city with electrification if building owners choose to do energy efficiency projects that include electric HVAC and renewable energy projects. And it also has an added tie to resiliency, because when people do energy efficiency projects, it reduces demand on the grid and it helps save costs for everybody in the community.
Right. And then my follow-up would be, in terms of logistics of this, once we enable it, is that it? We don't see it again, or is every single property that goes for it comes through the board again?
It would not go through the Board of Aldermen. It would go through the assessors. So
Okay.
the Business Finance Authority would be reviewing all the projects, ensuring compliance, doing the assessment. The assessing department would review them and then mark the property for a lien if all requirements are checked off. This is a new program, so the training for the assessors has not been established by the New Hampshire Business Finance Authority, but they are in progress on working on that. And if this were to move forward, they would get that training.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to
Alderman Tebow.
announce Alderman Clemens has arrived. There was a question
All
over there.
votes now need to be by roll call.
Roll call, yeah.
Ben, can you just let us know that you're here, all the fun questions? Thank you.
Yes, I will do that. This is Alderman Clemens. I am present. I can hear everyone. And I'm attending remotely because I am taking care of my wife who is ill.
All right, thank you.
Okay, a question over here.
Alderman Johnson.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight and explaining this. So, if you sell your property, the lien stays on the property, so the new owners would take over the payments. Is that it?
That's correct.
So it would be like solar. So if you were renting or buying, if you were leasing solar, or you took a loan on the solar panels, this kind of stays like the same way with the solar panels.
So to respond to that, you can obtain solar in a lot of different ways. One of those ways includes a lease on the solar on the property, and that's when the payment would pass through to the property owner. If you were to take a traditional loan out for solar, that would stay with the homeowner. So in terms of the lease agreement for solar, which stays with the property, I would say that would be kind of similar to this, but the collateral for that would be on the property instead of a higher risk for the solar installer who doesn't have collateral on that lease.
Okay. May I continue?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any other communities that have done this? I know New Hampshire's working on it, but if not in New Hampshire, any other states where you've seen the success in it?
Yes, I believe this program has been successful in California and Massachusetts. and a few other states, which I can't remember exactly which ones, but we are kind of late adopters of the CPACER program. A lot of communities, or a lot of states also have a PACER program for residential property as well. So the state is starting at CPACER, and it's a well-established program across the country.
May I continue?
Alderman Johnson.
Thank you. Would you be kind enough to send us some information on the different communities
Absolutely.
that has had success with this? Because that's how I will basically base my decision on, because I'd like to see success rates. And if there's anybody who's failed, I'd like to see that too, and why they might have failed. I think that's important.
All set, Alderman Johnson?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
The motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. Any additional questions? By roll call.
Yep. Alderman Thomas Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Derek Tebow is a yes. Alderman Paula Johnson.
No?
Alderman at large Ben Clemens.
Yes.
And Alderwoman at large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
All right, it's 4-1, it passes.
That motion carries. As we go into new business ordinances, I'm going to request that we make an exception and pull from the table, which one is it? 02607. We were unable to hear it last time because Director Cummings had to leave early. So if everyone has no objection, I'd love to start there.
All right, 0-26-007, amending the unaffiliated employees' personnel policies by adding a medical insurance coverage opt-out stipend. I'd like to make a motion to take it off the table.
You've heard the motion. Please call the roll.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Paula Johnson.
No?
Alderman Ben Clemens.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow is yes. Alderman Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
All right, we have 4 to take it off the table, 1 no, so it carries.
Now you have to.
Yep, make the motion to, all right. I'd like to make the motion to recommend final passage of 0-26-007.
You've heard the motion. I am going to recognize Director Cummings. Thank you for being with us remotely.
Yes, for the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. I'm having a little trouble this evening with my internet and connectivity, so there may be a delay, and I apologize for that. The ordinance before you is limited to the unaffiliated employees. Each contract for each individual collective bargaining group would need to adopt this particular language, so they would have access to it. So I just want to be clear, this legislation at hand is just for the unaffiliated employees at this time. And what it does is, and we've talked about this on a couple of occasions with the Board of Aldermen, is it's a cost containment strategy where we would, through a policy, offer a stipend in lieu of providing health care and health care benefits. You'd have to have eligible health care benefits, and that would need to be demonstrated. And if you qualified, you'd get paid out a stipend. And the stipend is at various intervals, single, 2-person, and family plans at differing dollar amounts. And you'd get it paid out for the year based off of your waiving of the health care benefits. You'd have the ability at any time to be able to rejoin the program, but then obviously the stipend would stop. You'd have an ability to do this once a year at open enrollment. The only other comment I would add is that we are trying to incentivize our employees by giving them a little additional money to look at alternative health care arrangements in a way to try to control some of our health care costs, which are going up double-digit year over year.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cummings. Questions to the committee? Alderman Tebow.
Thank you. Director Cummings, so I've seen these at pretty much everywhere I've ever worked. Obviously, the goal is to push people to other insurance if they are eligible for it. So you cut down the claims, have claims containment. So you're not cost containment for claims, obviously. What would be is there any downside to this? Like what would be the con of offering this to employees?
Well, I don't really think there's a downside. This is not a cutting edge program by any stretch. This is pretty tried and true in terms of a benefit being offered. I don't think, in all honesty, it will get a lot of participation because I believe our employees, one of the reasons why they like our organization is they like the benefits we offer. Most of our employees, I think, come for the benefits. And so I say that because they would still have the option to participate. I just don't think that there's going to be a lot of participation, but we felt as though that this is something we could offer in lieu of getting into plan design type conversations in a way to try to help control or contain some of the increases in the benefits budget.
Great, thank you.
Is that Alderman Tebow?
Yep.
All right, Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You touched on it a little bit, but my question through you, Madam Chair, to Director Cummings is, do you have an anticipated cost savings that this is going to save the city, or are we just hoping for the best here?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Director Cummings.
Thank you. That great question. We don't have any data yet to point to in terms of trend. In consultation with our consultant, if we could get and work towards a 5% participation rate, that would be considered good. 10 would be excellent. I think that that's kind of where we're striving to out of our entire universe of employees who have benefits. If we could, over a period of time, grow to between 5 and 10%, that would be a recognizable industry standard as acceptable. I think anecdotally, I can say that we anticipate next year something in the about 3% participating. And then we would obviously watch this over the coming years and have a conversation with you all as to if we're not seeing the level of participation we would like, maybe adjust the incentive up or down as we see what the trend looks like. We've set the numbers based on recommendations by our consultant, and the way this is structured is we would have an ability once a year to adjust the stipend up or down, and we would do that based on the data as we see participation.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yes, follow up.
So my follow-up to this is how many of our employees now do not take our health care, and those employees would then have the ability to take this stipend, correct? So in other words, if I'm an employee and I don't already take the health care, I can at open enrollment do this. Nothing's different, nothing has changed, but now I'm $2,500, whatever it is, richer.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Director Cummings.
Thank you. So it is only those employees who have had health benefits provided over a 3-year period. So you have to have the prior 3 years to establish eligibility. Okay. And then you could have access to it.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about new employees coming in who, they're brand new, they haven't been around the block?
And if you could demonstrate that you have other healthcare benefits being provided to you, you could gain access to the.
So if you're brand new to the city.
Yes.
Okay.
All set.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Alderman Johnson.
Thank you very much. Director Cummings, do you know any other municipalities that are doing this and their success rate?
Director Cummings?
Yes, off the top of my head, I'm going to say Concord has a similar type program. I know that there are a few other municipalities that do offer it as well. I cannot tell you off the top of my head what their adoption rate is, but I'm happy to get that and forward it on to the committee.
Thank you very much.
All set, Alderman Johnson?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right, the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. All set? Clerk, please call the roll.
All right, Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman Tebow says yes. Alderman Johnson.
No.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
And Alderman Kelly.
Yes.
Alderman Kelly. That's 3 yeses to 2 nos. It carries.
That motion carries. Thank you, Director Cummings.
Thank you.
All right, we go back to the top.
All right. We have O-26-010 regarding use of electronic devices during meetings. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. Discussion. Alderman Johnson.
Thank you very much. I wrote this ordinance because I've gotten calls and meet people, and they're kind of concerned that they see people on their cell phones, their head is down, and they feel that members of this board should be really concentrating on the discussion and not being on cell phones. And it's really sad, but you know, we had to do it in school, bell to bell, because kids were using their cell phones more than what they should be. And I remember when I sat in the House, they used to discourage the use of a flip phone back then. That's how long ago it was, a flip phone. And they did call the House and Senate, and they did say that they do not encourage using the cell phone during general meeting. Well, I called, and I got the information. You know, I'm not lying about this, but I did make that phone call. And I think we're at a turning point here in this chamber that we really need to be focusing on the meeting, that not picking up these phones, you know, and using it. And I think that, you know, we should be able to use our tablets just for our meeting minutes. And this is why I'm doing it, because my constituents asked me to do this, and I feel that this is appropriate. And, you know, we really need to start concentrating, and it's not about a phone anymore. The phones give us a lot of activity. We can do a lot on it, but when we're at this meeting, our focus should be at the meeting and not on these cell phones. Thank you.
Alderman Tebow, and then Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, how am I going to get my high score? Just kidding. So, a question to the maker of the legislation, I guess. How much papers do you have there of all the stuff we go over in front of you right now?
I have a lot.
You have a stack, right? I saw you come in with a
me.
stack. So my question is, some people use their electronics to do that. I used to sit next to a couple over from Alderman Clemmons. He once got called out for using his phone in a meeting, but he had 0 paper at his desk, and he didn't have a tablet. He was using his phone to scroll down the ordinances. And I know they can speak for themselves, but Alderman Lopez does the same thing. So I know that sometimes we use our phone to you look up something if we don't have our tablets with us. So it's not always people fooling around. I know people see somebody on the phone. I yell at my kids all the time for being on their phones. It's not always about fooling around or talking to somebody that's not here. Sometimes it's actually doing work. It's looking up something. Now, I can't speak for everyone. I'm not saying everyone does that, but I believe we do. So I don't think I would support this because I don't know how you would enforce it. Like, how would you enforce that somebody's doing work compared to not work? So, I mean, we're not going to have someone walking around going, oh, you're talking to a family member, you're doing work. And the other piece is some of us have kids, and sometimes we got to react to make sure everything's okay at home. So it's you know, I mean, how else can they get to us? And they come here and storm into the chamber? I mean, sometimes we might have an emergency. I've seen people leave the chamber before. after they get a call or they get a text. So I don't think I'll be supporting this tonight.
May I respond?
I have a list.
Oh, good.
Alderman Clemmons, I have you next. Put you on the
Thank
list.
you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this unfortunately, well, what Alderman Tebow just said is absolutely true. I use my cell phone during the meeting as opposed to my tablet. I just prefer it. It's easier for me to get information and things like that. But the other thing is too, I started this meeting tonight off on my cell phone. That's how I logged in. I'm on my tablet now because I was able to get upstairs into the office, but I was doing stuff to take care of my wife and realized how late I was. So I was like, you know what, I can log in on my phone, and then once I get upstairs to the office, I'll go on the computer. So, you know, if we passed this, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I think it's unnecessary. I won't be supporting it.
All set? Alderman Lopez, I'm going committee members first, but I also see Dowd, Clee, and Greg. I'll get to you guys. Alderman Lopez?
So I am using my tablet, and I've been logged out at least 3 times with my email, and I have to use my phone in order to do the 2-factor authentication. It was pointed out at one point during a meeting that I was using my phone, and at that time, I believe I didn't have a computer, and I was just using it for the minutes. And for me, it's easier to see the phone often when I'm trying to scroll through or look through things, because I have to look about 4 or 5 inches away. So, I mean, essentially, my fellow alderman's asking me to do a meeting like this and make it just really clear to everybody that I'm legally blind, which I think is ironic considering some of the other legislation that's been put out.
All set? Alderman Johnson?
Thank you. First of all, I want to respond to Alderman Clemmons. It would make no difference to you from home whether you're on your tablet or whether you're on your cell phone. This has to do in the chamber. And to my colleague, Alderman Lopez, when it comes to a disability, there are certain rules and regulations, and that you would be entitled to it because of your disability. It's talking about texting during the meetings. It's talking about not responding and not paying attention at times. And the reason, we talk about all this at times, well, I won't be able to do this. My phone is always down like this. And if I hear it buzz, I might pick it up and just look at it. And that's about it. Because I remember when I was in this chamber back when, people's phones the flip phones used to ring, and we had a sign on the door that says, please shut off your cell phones because of it. Because it becomes distracting. What people are saying, that they're concerned when they see people all the time and their head is down like this. They're concerned that someone is texting something to somebody outside of the chamber, or they're discussing the meeting and telling people how to vote. And it does happen at times. Maybe not in here, but it's happened other places. But this is what their concern is. Because there's nothing under the right to know law that covers this. And that's really a little hole in the right to know law that I hope it gets changed. If you're on your tablet in here because you're doing a meeting, you're on the meeting. But if you're texting people, that's not what you're supposed to be doing during a meeting. Thank you very much.
All right, my order, I have Dowd, Alderman Dowd, then Clee, Greg, and then Senate.
Okay. There's a couple things that bother me about this. One, it's an ordinance, and I believe the maximum fine's $1,000 for an ordinance if you violate it. And who's going to police it? Are we going to be stopping our meetings every 10 minutes because somebody says, oh, someone's using their phone? Are they using it right or not right? And I use a tablet a lot when I'm here, but like tonight, I don't have my tablet. And if I wanted to look something up on the city website, I'd use my phone. And you have to look at it, so you have to be looking down, or that's kind of useless. And who's going to make the final determination if you're misusing the phone? The chair, or, I don't think that's been a thing. And we all have families, and I know several times I've had issues come up with my family when the phone rings, I have to look and see what they're saying. So there are times when it's necessary. So the biggest problem I have with this is who's going to police it, how are we going to justify the misuse, and who's going to determine that, and who's going to determine if there's a fine, because it's an ordinance. I think if anything, it should probably just be rules of how we conduct meetings and have nothing to do with an ordinance.
All set, Alderman Dowd?
Yes.
Alderman Clee, I have you next.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few things to say. And I'm going to speak about a time that I sat here as my husband was dying. He was in a coma. And I was sitting where Alderman Kelly, I think, was sitting. And as I sat there, I received a message from his niece, who was staying with my husband. And it was a picture of him that he had opened his eyes and he was waking. I didn't say anything to anybody. I got up and I left. If I didn't have my phone or the ability to use my phone, I would not have known that he had come out of this coma. So for that reason alone, I'm sorry. Emergencies come up, family needs. As far as looking down, today I don't have it, but normally I'm looking down at my Remarkable because I take lots and lots of notes, and I know you do the same thing. As far as getting messages, to the maker of the motion, I'm going to say that you sat in this chamber once reading from your phone from a message that you received from someone who had to leave, and you read all the comments that they wanted to make. And you sat right there and you did that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree with what you did. I agree wholeheartedly with what you did. You upheld the residents' need to be heard. I think that was admirable. I agree with everything that you said, but that person had sent you a message and they had left afterwards, and then you had read from there. I saw you with your phone and doing so. The other comment about the State House, I was a chair on the State Federal Relations and Veterans Affairs Committee. And at that time, I told my people, I don't want electronic devices that are going to ring or buzz, and please pay attention. I didn't police it. If someone picked up a phone and was using it, then I understood that there was a need. They were looking something up, has been commented by others that have said that. I can tell you I've sat in the chamber, and I had one state rep whose husband was a senator, and she was sending messages back and forth. She happened to be the party that was in the majority at the time, so you know nothing would happen to that person. I sat behind another person who was getting messages from her husband about a gun bill. Again, person in the majority, so I know nothing was going to happen to them. As far as using our tablets versus using our phones, my tablet has the same capability of being able to receive messages and being able to receive emails as my looking up. Again, I look down most of the time when people are talking because I'm taking very, very, very long, very detailed notes, and I'm looking things up. Earlier, before people were talking, I was looking up information about 91A. I did my homework beforehand, but somebody had said something, and I was like, I need to check that. I'm not completely familiar, with every single word, and I did look it up, and I found contradictory comments to what had been said. So I think that to say this and to the other comments of who's going to police it, how is it going to be enforced, and while I do think that the public gets a interpretation of what is actually happening, I think we as individuals should answer to our constituents. I think we should have to. If my constituent says, you're always looking down, what are you doing? I would tell them exactly what I just said here. So for all of those reasons, I hope this committee does not pass this and sends it truthfully to IP. Thank you very much.
Alderman Gregg?
Thank you. So as someone who's currently serving in the House, I would say while they don't encourage us to use it, they don't say, hey, why don't you use this? The more important piece is that they don't discourage us from using them. And a lot of us use them. Somebody will come up with a bill, legislation, we might have a question on something, and so we are on them. They are a tool. What phones have become is far beyond what flip phones used to be when they were just, ringing somebody and not even text messages were reliable. We did have pagers even before that, but these have become encyclopedias in our hand. We can go onto the city website, we can find out what's happening. And I think we also have to understand we're all adults and we can police that, and we own each one of our votes. So whether or not somebody thinks we're paying attention or not when we vote, we still have to own that. We still have to explain how we voted. And we do have constituents that contact us. They're not all contacting one person, and I would say that rather than say, oh, we're going to ban phones, encourage people who maybe, if you're not their representative, encourage them to talk to their representative and find out why. But I think passing legislation on this is the wrong thing to do. Phones have become a tool. They're not just a play toy. Thank you.
Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, even if I'm not on this committee anymore. Before I say what I wanted to, I do want to acknowledge, just because I've heard it come up in some of the discussion back and forth, many of my colleagues have made the point that, they utilize these devices to access the city website, minutes, what have you. That's allowed in the ordinance. It does allow for access to the city website, board member packets, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, not to step on Alderman Klee's toes, you had kind of alluded to the point I wanted to make. I don't know who among my colleagues specifically has received communication in the midst of a meeting from their constituents. I know I have. I know for a fact I'm not the only one, because I've heard a lot of questions, whether I was sitting out there or whether I was sitting here, led off with, I have a constituent who just contacted me and wanted to know, enter question. That happened via text message. If that happened in the midst of the meeting, that happened in text message. I have impassioned constituents, probably several, who are unable to come out and attend the meetings. It's for that reason that I actually sponsored the reintroduction of Zoom for disabled individuals, because it would bolster their participation in the meeting. Lacking that, I can certainly be a conduit for them to get their questions on the floor here. And I would hate to see that go away because of the concerns over the use of devices in front of us. I am very tech savvy for the most part. I don't like papers. I have no qualms with the fact that my seat neighbor does. I work in accounting. I see enough paper during the day. But this tablet is a tool that I do go beyond the city website for. We talk a lot about infrastructure in here. We talk about a lot of locations. I've been in the city 30 some odd years. There are still streets I don't know the location of by name, and I've got to pull them up to find out where I'm talking about, to orient myself with the locations that we're discussing sometimes in here. So to codify this as an ordinance, I feel is maybe heavy-handed. I do agree with my colleague at large, Alderman Gregg, that we are adults. We can, to an extent, police each other, and it is incumbent upon us to pay attention. And if somebody is dwelling down here, specifically more down here, then that can be an issue. But what we see in front of our eyes doesn't always tell the entire story. So that's all I wanted to say on the matter. Thank you.
All set. Alderman Johnson.
Thank you very much. To my colleague, Alderman Klee, I understand. And the night that I had my phone, I was told he was going to text me, and I said, do not text me. I took a picture of it. So when I was reading it from the phone, it was a picture. It was not a text message in the meeting, because I felt that if I'm going to ask other people not to have text messages, it would not be right for me to say, okay, text me, and then during the meeting, I pull up a text message. No, and so I did take a picture. I still have it on my phone because I felt that was, if I could have copied it, I would have copied it and put it into paper form. I'm a paper person. It's just who I am at my age. But, you know, I understand everybody's concerns with this, but, you know, I am concerned too about sometimes the overusage of it. But
All right. Motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. Clerk, call the roll.
Alderman Thomas Lopez.
No.
Alderman Tebow is a no. Alderman Paula Johnson.
yes,
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens, Vice Chair.
No.
And Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly, Chairwoman.
No.
That's 4 noes and 1 yea.
That motion fails.
Hmm?
We have to dispose of it somehow.
Oh. So we don't push it over to the...
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Yes, Alderman Clemmons.
I move for indefinite postponement, to recommend indefinite postponement.
Motion on the floor is to recommend indefinite postponement. Clerk, please call the roll.
All right. Alderman Thomas Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Derek Tebow is a yes. Alderman Paula Johnson.
no,
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens.
Yes.
And Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes, that motion
That's
carries.
4 yeas, 1 nay. Indefinite postponement. All right. Now we have O-26-011 regarding virtual meeting participation. Motion is to recommend final passage.
Discussion. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you. I originally endorsed this, and the reason why I endorse this is I think generally if people can put their cameras on, I think they should. With that, I also understand that there's times when people can't and shouldn't. And originally, I was going to put in a amendment for like an exception by the president, but then I just decided maybe it's just not vote for it. But I do think if you know, if you're in a hotel room and you're away from you know, you're away for work or whatever, and I don't see why you can't put on the camera. We all have to show our faces. So if I grimace, you know, I expect people to grimace over there too and show their face. But I get it. If you're really sick or you're dealing with something, I wouldn't expect you. I know I came on the camera a couple of years ago with pink eye, and I probably shouldn't have. I had double pink eye. Probably shouldn't have because I look like hell. But I did anyway, and because I feel strongly about it. I feel strongly at work about it. It's one thing we try to do a lot at work is we try to show our face at work, and because we're working with people that aren't, you know, in our site. So, but again, I you know. Again, it's one of those things where, you know, like all the women at large, Greg said, you know, we're adults. Try to, you know, if you can do it, please do it. And if you can't, you can't. And I think again, I think we can do that ourselves, and we can decide when it's appropriate to do that and appropriate not to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez, and then Alderman Clemmons.
I do a lot of work with telehealth, and we do have to be able to see our patients, we do have to be able to assess them, but there's also times where the internet slows, and that will get in the way of actually participating. I think we already saw tonight connectivity issues taking place. I don't think a blanket rule is the smart thing to do here. As is pointed out several times, I think it's a solution in search of a problem. I'm not aware of any aldermen showing up in their bathrobes or whatever, or doing any kind of ridiculous things. I think generally we can trust our colleagues to represent their constituencies appropriately, and if they're not, that's up to the constituents.
All set, Alderman Lopez.
Yeah.
Alderman Clemmons.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I can speak, you know, I tend to not put on my camera because I've had, when I've done it in the past, I've had connectivity issues. People have trouble hearing me. And with it not on here, it's just easier. You know, if I will try to put it on if the internet connection is strong, and sometimes it's stronger than others than other times. But in general, you know, I tend to leave it off. ultimately, you know, I'm going through a lot personally. So I participate remotely, and I appreciate the fact that I'm able to do that. You know, ideally, I wish I could be in the chamber with all of you. I don't like participating remotely like this, especially because it slows down the meetings with all of the roll call votes. But, you know, I will say, you know, at the end of the day, we all have a decision to make when it comes to how we serve our constituents. You know, we had an alderman who decided that, you know, for him, it wasn't worth the effort, and he resigned, you know, earlier in the year. For me, I believe strongly that I have a lot to offer to the city, and that I want to continue serving. And, you know, at the end of the day, if my constituents don't like the fact that I'm not showing my face, then they don't have to vote for me. And I respect that decision. But, you know, I don't think that a mandate to compel me to put my camera on is going to change the outcome of anything that I decide or don't decide. So,
All set,
thank you.
Alderman Clemens. Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, a lot of my colleagues have alluded to the drain on bandwidth that an additional device is. The truth is that when you're connecting to anything remotely like that, each additional functionality that you add in is a drain on your bandwidth. If the decision came down to being able to see my colleagues who are participating remotely or being able to hear my colleagues who are participating remotely, I'd pick hearing them 10 out of 10 times. Prior to the advent of Zoom and Teams or whatever else you have, we had aldermen who routinely participated via telephone and came in through the nice circle thing up there. You know, I feel that we have come leaps and bounds. I'm a fan of the tools that we do have. I personally have no qualm utilizing my camera. I should probably buy a new one if this one goes in, because I spent $6 on Amazon. It's kind of lousy. But it does lead into a whole glut of accessibility. Does somebody own a camera? You know, you can get the $6 special on Amazon. It's not going to be that great, and it's going to drain your bandwidth. But it, again, like I said, I have no problem. I'll even put on a funny background to amuse you guys if I'm remote. But I don't see the need necessarily. Oh, the other point I wanted to make. My colleague to the other side travels pretty frequently and is often in hotels participating remotely due to business. If you've ever tried to connect to something remotely from the convenience of hotel Wi-Fi, it's a wonder we can hear and see him as well as we can. And I know he makes an effort to put his camera on whenever possible. Hotel Wi-Fi is lousy. And I would hate to rob that accessibility of him just because the requirement may interrupt his connectivity. So that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alderman Clee, I had you next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I think that this is an admirable type of thing, first off, I want to comment that in this here, it refers to, in accordance with RSA 91A, and it very specifically says members participating electronically are required to keep their cameras on during the meeting. So I went looking through RSA 91A to make sure, to see if that comment was in fact there. And while I did kind of find it under RSA 91A, Roman numeral 4B, that Roman numeral 4 is very specifically to state boards and to state committees, and it's very specific that that's what it is. It's not municipal committees, so we're not violating that particular thing of the RSA. Only they have to do that, and actually it even comments that they just have to have 1/3 of the people present for quorum. So and we don't follow that either. But keeping with all of that, I'm going to echo a comment that was made before. I think we're all adults, and the truth is, some of us, I rarely come in from on Zoom, but again, when my husband was dying and I had to be there to take care of him because there was nobody there at that time, and I would Zoom in. Sometimes I didn't put my camera on because, truthfully, not having pink eye, but I looked like heck because I probably hadn't even showered that day. But it was important for me to be at that meeting, and I did not want my unruly hair and lack of cleanliness, so to speak, to become a meme on Facebook, and let's face it, it would have. So I chose to keep camera off. I've chosen to keep camera off because I have issues with bandwidth. I use the camera on my iPad. I also try to, when I'm speaking, put my camera on, but I can't always do that. Again, if it's a bandwidth and people are saying I can't hear you, first thing I do. I remember when we originally had Zoom and we were all Zooming in, they would tell people, please all shut your cameras off because we're not getting anything here. So cameras take a lot on the bandwidth. You know, so I think, as was stated, 10 out of 10 times I want to hear my colleagues, and I want them to hear me more than I want them to see me. And yes, I have used Wi-Fi in hotels, and unless you pay for the premium, you often do not have a good connection. You see that one little bar or something to that thing. I think bottom line is, we don't need to be told, and unless there's a state rule that mandates this, and maybe because I've said this, now someone's going to run and try to create one, we're adults. And if we're going to allow our members, and truthfully, I voted against members being able to Zoom in. When we got rid of Zoom, I said nobody. I was one of those people that said nobody. But, you know, it's past, it is, and I think we're all grown-ups. I trust my colleagues to do the right thing. And you know what? If they're sick and they're in their pajamas, I really don't want to see their pajamas. I'm sorry. I'd rather have their camera off. And Alderman Tebow, yeah, you should have had your camera off that day. I had to keep looking down. I'm sorry. It was not a good look for you. But thank you.
All set, Alderman Clee?
Yes.
Alderman Gregg?
I'll waive. I think it's all been covered. Thank you. It's all been covered.
It's all been
Thank you.
covered. Okay. Alderman Johnson?
Thank you very much. I wrote this, and I did not, as Corporation Counsel, so they did all the legal stuff, not me, so you can't blame me on legal. Okay? I'm not an attorney. I don't plan to be one anytime soon. I wrote this because it's always, and I do a lot of Zoom with what I do at work at times, and my cameras always have to be on. And if I'm taking classes through Zoom, my cameras have to be on, because if not, I don't get my credits for my classes. And even during COVID, there would be like 20, 30 people on Zoom, and we all had to have the cameras on, and nothing went wrong. I mean, we were lucky, maybe we were lucky. But it is more, I guess, professional, that when you're having these meetings, and if you're Zooming and you have your face on, that you're really part of the meeting, because people see you. And although you're not physically sitting in your chair around the horseshoe, you were still in the horseshoe by Zooming. And that was basically what it was about, was because, you know, at this meeting, and you should be part of the meeting, and you're being there with your face, even on Zoom, you're part of that meeting. I'm not going to sit here and beg, you know, for this, because I know everybody's mind is made up already again, but I'm trying to look at it from a different perspective. And why would you want your face on Zoom when you're at a meeting? Because you are at a meeting, sitting around a horseshoe with a professional board. And if this was a corporation, and your corporation said, like I have to do it for classes at times, and they do Zooms, my camera has to be on all the time, or I don't get my 3 credits. And then I've wasted 3 hours of time because I did not have my camera on. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's great. The community gets to see that you're participating, that you're part of the meeting, just like if you were sitting in the chair And if you had to get up and use the restroom, you get up and use the restroom, just like you would if you're sitting around the horseshoe. I think there's nothing wrong with it because we're a professional board and people should see us sitting around here as a professional board. Thank you.
Motion is to, are we good? Recommend final passage by roll call.
All right, Alderman Thomas Lopez.
No.
Alderman Derek Tebow is a no. Alderman Paula Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman at-large Ben Clemens.
No.
And Alderman at-large Shoshana Kelly.
No.
That's 4 noes, 1 yea.
Yep, motion
Fails.
fails. Alderman Clemmons,
Motion to indefinitely postpone.
to recommend indefinite postponement.
Yes.
By roll call. All set?
Yeah, I'm just making sure no one has to speak to it. All right, Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow's a yes. Alderman Johnson.
No.
Alderman at-large Ben Clemens.
Yes.
And Alderwoman at-large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
That's 4 yeses, 1 nay, passes, or it gets postponed, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, next up is O-26-012, amending the definition of secondhand dealers. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. I know the prime sponsor of this is here, so I was going to let Alderman Senate introduce this to us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present this tonight. So this ordinance was actually born out of a prior ordinance that died in this committee during the 2021 term, which would have clarified that coin dealers are not secondhand dealers. This came about, as you heard during public comment, due to a number of people in a particular industry, for lack of a better term, facing challenges with their line of work as it relates to primarily hobbyist shops that may deal in secondhand goods that they purchase from members of the public. The laws on the that are on our books currently require a number of regulations of them to operate in this manner. Chief among them that I believe is the pain point is the requirement that any goods that they purchase for eventual resale, in this particular example that we have, hobby products, trading card games, gaming products, collectibles, what have you, those products have to be held for 30 days before they are allowed to, in turn, price them and put them out for sale. In this particular line of work, that can be problematic. The pricing of these items, especially if they're an in-demand item, can be particularly volatile. And it is the opinion of many within this industry, and an opinion that I share, that while we understand the purpose of these regulations, primarily serving to cut down on the sale of stolen goods, we're really only barring one door in an industry that has grown to open several more doors that we as a municipality really can't put our fingers in the dam to plug. When these ordinances were passed, eBay, if it existed at all, was likely in its infancy. E-commerce has exploded where anybody has access with certain degrees of anonymity. I know I myself, just out of concern, when I used to sell on eBay, I would be required to say, where is the product located? Well, I lived in North Nashua at the time, so I said 03055, so I was in Merrimack. You know, I wasn't in Nashua. I could sell from a post office box, so whoever received the goods that I sold would never know that I was located in Nashua. I could have purchased a post office box at, the Merrimack post office. And so what we wanted to do here is take the ordinance that had been written back in 2020 that would have clarified that coin dealers are not second-hand dealers and expand that a little bit. So we included all the language because that ordinance never did wind up going through. It just stalled, tabled, and died at the end of the term. And so we are covering a redefinition under commodity metals, that commodity metals shall not include numismatic coins, currency, and precious metal coins and ingots. Beyond that, however, we are clarifying that individuals whose primary business is the purchase and sale of these numismatic coins, currency, and precious metals and coins, as well as trading cards and collectibles, are not classified as secondhand dealers, so that we can sort of free up the process that they have to go through. We've included definitions of trading cards in here, as well as sort of a broad spectrum definition of collectibles, so that ultimately what we can do is encourage business here in Nashua, a brick and mortar business, where so much of this is becoming e-commerce. I can't speak to the methodology that that people in this industry do follow when the issue of potentially stolen goods comes up. However, I can speak to the fact that I know that there is a breadth of communication amongst these dealers. You heard our speaker during the first public comment period tonight rattling off the names and the locations of where these folks operate out of. There is a very strong community here. I know personally that when I've walked into their shops, the very first thing I see before the things that catch my eye and drain my wallet is my smiling face on their camera systems. This is secure business happening. I feel that this would be beneficial to our business community. And I do just want to say for the record that one thing I endeavored to do here with this is to keep it all above the belt. This, as it relates to the coin dealers, this legislation died on the table back in 2021 because this committee was waiting for the input from then Chief Carignan. Prior to submitting this to legal at all, I alerted the police chief to what it is that I wanted to do. When the agenda was available and we knew for certain that it would be heard here, I contacted the police chief again, inviting him to come speak. The last correspondence that I received from him was that he would speak with his detectives and they would let me know prior to the meeting if they wished to come and speak on it tonight. I say that just because I know that folks may be looking for that input. I do want to be crystal clear that that opportunity was offered a number of times. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can on the matter.
Thank you, Alderman Sennett. That was a very clear and thorough overview. Alderman Tebow.
Sure, thank you. So would Director Sullivan be the one to talk to this from their angle, like from the city's side, or who would speak to why we should or shouldn't do this from, I don't know if he's the one. Is that part of code?
I see Alderman Clemens' hand up, so I'm going to ask because
Well,
I think he was
he might
here.
know the answer, though, to that.
Oh, or Alderman Sennett, you know the answer.
Real quickly before Alderman Clemens chimes in, so we did get just a little bit of input from another individual who indicated that they wouldn't be joining us to speak specifically. They wasn't that heavy a concern, just letting us know, again, examples of the situation with, theft of cards and things like that. And that was from City Clerk Dan Healy, who is the department responsible for licensing these businesses as either secondhand dealers or pawnbrokers.
Alderman Tebow.
Yeah, I mean, my question there was just to make sure there's no unintended consequences that I'm not seeing. I mean, it hasn't been a baseball card store in Nashua for many years. I got to go to Drake It and get cards and Drake It by a guy who lives in Nashua and owns that store. So, but he also owns an ice cream shop right there. So he's probably not going to come back to Nashua. But it would be awesome if he could move his store here and I didn't have to drive 20 minutes to look. So I think I'll support this. It sounds like it's a good idea. I just wanted to make sure there was no unintended consequences that I'm not thinking about. So, thank you.
Alderman Clemens, and then I see your hand, Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I understand the urgency of the matter. as to why people would want to make quick sales. I'm just wondering, like, what other jurisdictions around us do. Look, for example, like in Massachusetts, is there a waiting period for these types of items when they come into a collectible shop, or other parts of New Hampshire? Like, I'm just curious to see, like, what would this make Nashua unique, or would it actually get us more in line with what the industry is? Do you know, through you to the author of the legislation, do you know what that is?
Alderman Senate?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. Every municipality is a little different. What I encountered in my research, talking not so much with other municipalities, but other operators, and I think we heard a hint of this a little bit during the public comment. I went to my shop that's in a different location as well. They're certainly not in Nashua. And I asked them about this, and they said, yeah, but it's never come up. Which, kind of, I think, speaks to what I was speaking to at the beginning, in that this is, given the expanse of the marketplace in the modern world, I think that this is, in any municipality that does have it, I think it's dated oversight, especially when you look into the breadth of shops that are likely not adhering to that 30-day rule. Again, a lot of these shops, they fill their places with things that they purchase through secondhand e-commerce. Those goods they purchase on eBay from a guy in Idaho, Iowa, California could be just as stolen as something that the guy picked up down the road and is trying to turn a quick buck on. Will it stop? What's that?
Sit down the road, like that way?
Sure. Maybe right outside our front door, Alderman Lopez. Yeah, there is a mixed bag out there. I looked in, like I said, I looked up in Manchester. I've looked in Concord. They do have similar laws on the books. I can't speak to how hardly they're being enforced, though.
All set, Alderman Clemens, or do you have a follow-up?
No, I have another question, if I could. So this speaks to the 30-day requirement. Do we have requirements in the ordinance, do you know, right now, in regards to logging, like where an item, who the item came from, and that sort of thing? Do we have that in the ordinance, and would that be required for these particular dealers?
Those requirements are on the books for dealers that are codified under this definition right now, yes.
Okay.
So these, but if we pass this ordinance, these folks would not be subject to those requirements, correct?
That's correct.
So I guess I feel like maybe we could have like a middle ground here, where we can waive the 30 days, but I would still like to have some sort of record, and I'm sure that these shops do it anyway, right? But I feel like if we have a requirement on the books that we have them be licensed as the secondhand dealers, we waive the 30-day requirements, but we make sure that they're recording where these things came from. We're kind of reaching a middle ground that satisfies the need for a detective, for example, that's looking into stolen property. I don't know your thoughts on that, or what you feel, how you feel about that, but that's something I certainly think we should think about.
All set, Alderman Clemens?
I am.
I'm actually gonna go to Alderman Gregg next, because she is a co-sponsor on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so,
sorry I missed that.
That's okay. I just, so I did some research too, and in looking at this, kind of what's happening, and this is something that traditionally secondhand dealer laws were built around serialized goods. So this was back when they had pawn shops and stuff like that. So it was stuff like electronics, guns, jewelry, those kind of things had serial numbers. So that's why they started, like in a lot of places, 30-day waiting periods, because they would check the serial number and stuff. Now what we have now is older laws trying to fit into a modern world where we're selling different things. We have cards, we have toys, we have things that don't have serial numbers. So that 30-day waiting period shifts now because there's no way to check a serial number, to check, on these different cards. So it becomes an over-regulation problem. So maybe not as much in New Hampshire, but you're seeing this in other states and other cities where they are changing this law to match what's happening in the modern world, especially when it comes to cards, whether it be Pokemon cards, sports cards. Those are wildly volatile values. And so if they can't sell them right away, that actually causes an unfair business practice for these businesses trying to work in this space. So I think the legislation as it stands makes sense. It's a modernized view on what we look at when we talk about people that are selling cards or resellers or whatever. And those traditional secondhand dealer laws are still going to, I think, apply to gun, jewelry, that kind of stuff, where they have serial numbers they have to check. I also know that all of these businesses keep records when they're getting goods and stuff in on where that's coming from, who the person is, and they have their own way of, evaluating if this seems like a person is, they're certainly not the law, but it's on their money. So they're also doing their own evaluations and being very protective of what they take in. So I think this is just the right thing to do. I think right now we're over-regulating this space.
Okay, all set? I had Alderman Kleenex.
Thank you, Madam President. I was the co-sponsor with Alderman Tenza on the original bill, and I was very disappointed with the chief at the time because he wasn't coming forward, he wasn't, and the reason I, as well as Alderman Tenza, sponsored this bill was because Mr. Galbo had come forward to us and explained to us that he had been operating in a particular way forever, and one of the NPD officers had come in and basically told him he had to stop selling things right away. And the volatility is real. If they hold something for 30 days, they could lose the majority of the value. If they take in something that is stolen, and the police come in and they confiscate it, they're out of the money that they paid for it. So the truth is they're going to be very careful about what they take in, and yes, they do have logs. I would assume that the legislation, even though you've changed a few of these definitions and so on, the legislation that was requiring the logging and so on is still going to remain, if I may ask, Madam Chair, to the maker of the...
For anybody that
Alderman
remains
Senate.
defined.
Okay.
Yeah, as a pawnbroker or a secondhand dealer, yes.
Yeah, so they still have to maintain the written documentation as to where it came from and so on, the log?
To be clear, these shops wouldn't, because we're reclassifying them.
Okay, okay.
But any shops engaged in the sale of wares that are still subject, jewelry, diamonds, things of that
Okay,
nature.
so these particular people are not going to have to do it?
That's correct, yes. It was modeled right off of the 2020 legislation.
Right, okay, so, and it died. Myself and Alderman Tenzo were very, very frustrated. I don't know how I didn't end up as a sponsor of this because I fought for that one, and it just died here in committee. It is, I hate to say that anybody is breaking the law, and I understand that the speaker came up and kind of admitted to it and threw some other people under the bus, but, and I respect the honesty of it, but the truth is, it's the only way they're going to stay in business, to be able to do this. So I think this is legislation that should be passed. I would have no problem with amending it to say that they should keep a log, but I think all of these people are. And I also want to make a comment that if someone came in and was selling stolen goods, that would be something that would get noticed and so on, because the police would be there all the time, either confiscating or saying, who did you sell this to, and so on. I think it's very important that we help these people, and I know Mr. Galbo lost quite a bit of money because he had to wait those 30 days when he would have people who wanted to buy within a week or something like that, or the value of that property dropped because suddenly, so he wasn't able to take, as Alderwoman Gregg had pointed out, he wasn't able to take advantage of the time of the sale at the apex of it, and had to, as it was coming down. So we don't want to do that to our businesses, and I hope that you do pass this, even if you do put an amendment as what Alderman Clements was speaking of. Thank you.
All right, Alderman Clements?
Yeah, thank you. I'm in agreement with everyone here as far as lifting the 30-day requirement on these types of business, but I can't support this unless these folks are still classified as secondhand dealers and subject to at least the regulation that they record, these sales the way that other dealers do. And the only reason that and it's been said that they do it anyway, so it's not like this is going to create some sort of extra burden on them, but I think that it's incumbent upon the city to make sure that we're doing right by our residents. And so I would entertain a motion, but I don't know enough about the entire section right now to be able to make that motion in a coherent manner. So, I don't know how the rest of the committee feels about that, but I do think that it is an important caveat that we should consider.
Alderman Lopez?
For my part, I understand what my colleague is suggesting, but I do think this is clearly a time-sensitive issue for businesses that, our businesses downtown particularly are struggling. So I don't want to wait for us to do our research, on an issue that we could probably offer an amendment to at the full board and at least move this forward. So it's not a deal breaker for me. I think if we wanted to make an amendment that obligates the record keeping, that's fine. If it's being done anyway, I think the police can probably get their hands on it if they want it. And I think we could always also go back and amend the ordinance again if we need to. So I would rather see this move forward, just because I don't want to see businesses suffering. As was pointed out, this was attempted years ago, and we're overdue.
Alderman Senate?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would caution an amendment on this legislation only because it treads into a realm of being more cumbersome than a typical amendment that we might see at the committee level. Just because of the current nature of this ordinance, this would involve going into subsections of the ordinance that we're revising, looping them into the current legislation as it's written, and rewriting those sections, because right now the way the ordinance is the definitions feed the regulation, not the other way around. We're declassifying, for lack of a better term, these particular dealers that have, by their definitions, regulations put upon them. We would need to, I think, sit down with legal in order to do what is being proposed, determine a new definition for the particular dealers now that would, for lack of a better term, sort of walk between the raindrops of these current regulations, applying some but not others to them. I can look at that in the interim, speak with my contacts out there in the field, and look into the work, but it feels more cumbersome than just a typical amendment to the legislation. Thank you.
Alderman Dowd, then Alderman Gregg.
just quick from my standpoint, if there's nobody here from any of the city divisions that is opposing of it, I see no harm in passing it.
That's it. Alderman Gregg, then Alderman Clemmons, I see you now.
Thank you. So I just wanted to point out too that we are talking about something that is more of an inventory thing. The only reason that you had 30-day holds and stuff was because for serial numbers to check those. These are not things that they can do that with. So this is a very different thing. Obviously, businesses keep track of their inventory and stuff. I don't think that's something that we want to regulate to make sure people are keeping their inventory sheets up. However, I think it's common practice. So I think this is good to go. I do think it would be a mistake to try to amend this because I think we're still kind of leaning back on that, what pawn shops used to have to be obligated to do. That's just not the case anymore.
Okay. Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, just to counter that point, if we don't do it, then, and somebody does go and they sell a stolen piece of, a stolen trading card, whatever it might be, then there's nothing to go back on that person to say you weren't following the law. In fact, they were following the law. They were following the law that we deregulated. So, that's where my concern comes in. I understand what Alderman Senate was saying, that yes, this is going to be, it would take a little bit more time to go through and make this, jive with the rest of the section, which is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. I'm not going to support it at this point in time because I do believe that we should be protecting the citizens of Nashua against theft that could potentially come up in this case. But I overall do agree we should get rid of the 30-day period.
Okay. Alderman Senate.
Yeah, so just hopefully one final point to what Alderman Gregg was speaking about in terms of the original intent versus the reality of today. Not so much the coins. I feel everybody's pretty comfortable with the coin aspect of this, but the industries that we're looking at here in regard to serialization and everything, this is, the 30-day hold, I feel becomes a little more cumbersome when we are considering somebody's VCR in the late 80s that may have been stolen and pawned off. And I'm going to show my lack of familiarity with this, but somebody's Pikachu card. My son collects Pokemon cards, and to the best of my understanding of them, the cheap little yellow Pikachu that he has, the Pikachu is the Pikachu is the Pikachu. I know some card packs get into your 1 of 50s and things like that, and so there's a bit more identification there, but there's very slim identification on this product to begin with. I am comfortable with these industries as they are today. These are not the pawn shops of the 80s, the CD bars on the window and everything. These proprietors of these businesses take their work very seriously. It's a passion project to even enter into a business like this, because it's, for most of them, for everyone that I've been able to frequent for 15, 20, 30 years, I've seen just as many go under in the window of a year. Not for reasons related to this, in terms of logging their inventory and where it came from. Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons?
Yeah, I think the lack of serial numbers, the lack of the fact that these objects have traceable elements is more the reason that we want to make sure that there's a requirement to document them properly.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. No further discussion?
All right. Alderman Lopez?
Yes.
Alderman Tebow is a yes. Alderman Johnson?
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons?
No.
And Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
That's 4 yeses to 1. It passes.
If there's no objection from the committee, I'd like to take a brief recess before I finish our agenda.
Do we have to tell them?
I'll wait for their, yep, there we
Yep,
go.
there we
Okay. Okay, so we just
We're back.
finished.
All right, so it's not on the script, but it is on the public, and it was on the agenda on the one that was sent out, so. Next ordinance is O-26-014, amending the Board of Aldermen compensation ordinance.
Make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for a final passage.
Recommend final passage. Discussion on that motion.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss it, please.
Alderman Tebow?
So on this one, and it's funny that this was brought up tonight when we probably had the most aldermen at a committee meeting that I've seen in a long time.
We got a quorum of board.
Yeah, we had a quorum of the board tonight, plus there was a couple other ones here earlier.
Go on now.
So, for me, I've been, this year, I've been at every meeting I'm supposed to be at, so I've been lucky, knock on wood, I've been lucky, nothing's happened that I've had to miss a board meeting. And so, for me, I think it is important to be here, but I also understand that there's reasons why people can't be here. So I look at it this way, it's up to, the president to notice if she believes that we have taken days off, and for her to mention that to us. But I also think it's the voters at that point. If the voters don't look at us and say, hey, that person's never there, or they're not there when they think we should be here, then, that's where they vote us out. They fire us, right? So I don't think I'll be supporting this, just because I don't, it's another one of those things where, why we can police ourselves. Why do we have to have this rule on the book? So that's my thoughts, my initial thoughts anyway.
We still have Alderman Clemens. Alderman Lopez?
I don't think attendance, strictly speaking, I do think we need to have minimum standards, and that the full board meetings are important, but it's also really important to go to the committee meetings, and some of us are on very active committee meetings and very active in the community too. That's never getting tracked. I think there's plenty of aldermen too who might go to the official board meetings and everything and have zero interest in listening to what their constituents have to say, and not be particularly engaged beyond that. So I think, strictly speaking, the stipend is supposed to offset some of the expenses or costs that come with being an alderman. I know, for my part, I just donate mine and use it for things like the block party, because I'm not a moneyed individual, and everyone comes to the elected official and says, like, hey, can you sponsor this? And I'm like, no money. So I don't necessarily view it as income per se. I know some aldermen do, and they rely on it. Either way, I don't think it reflects the full scope of service if we only focus on the attendance in the meetings. And I think if somebody is, maybe they aren't able to help out in one other area, they may be very good at other areas, and it's up to their constituents to decide that.
All set. Alderman Johnson?
Thank you very much. We can go down 3 for 3 tonight, but, if you read this ordinance, it already exists. It already exists that if you are absent from 3 or more regular meetings. So the only thing I've added on here, if you're on a committee and you're absent more, and you combine them all, you combine the total of 3 or more regular meetings of the board, special meetings of the board, and committee meetings. Because doesn't everybody say the work is done in committee? So if you're not attending your committee meetings, then you're not doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. And so it's very clear in the ordinance, because it was changed, because it said health, but maternity, paternity, or adoption leave, or extenuating circumstances, that I believe was in there, but 3 of the things were added in back at the beginning. Now, I did a little bit of research here, and a constituent sent me, how many people are out already. But I remember back in December, because I came to the meeting back then of 21, when an alderwoman at large was at 3 meetings, and it was said it was relevant here. If in any quarter, any member of the Board of Aldermen is recorded absent 3 or more meetings of the board, city clerk shall transmit communication, and it goes on, that important paragraph. And then what happened was, because I came in here, and I was not happy with that, because it was Alderman O'Brien that recommended indefinite postponement on that. Because what happens is when we miss it, at that time, it would have been $12.50, you wouldn't get paid because you didn't show up for 3 regular meetings. Now it's a little bit more money. I believe it's like $22.50 a quarter. So if you miss one full board, one special meeting, one committee meeting, those are 3 meetings in that quarter, you forfeit your stipend. And our constituents expect us, except for these circumstances, it's not maternity for me anymore. Could there be extenuating circumstance? Could be your health, you know? Other than that, we should be here. If you're traveling and you're out on business, you know, if you have a legitimate reason why you can't be here, then that's good. And this is why I expanded it a little bit more, because, you know, people aren't coming to meetings. And it is my tax dollars also that's paying me and everybody else to come to these meetings. And now constituents expect more, because it wasn't me on the board that voted for the $9,000. I was at $4,000 on the Board of Ed both times, and I was $5,000 on this board. Now you're up to $9,000. I think they expect a little bit more for us to be there. Unless, you know, it's like I said about Zoom. We're a professional board. Our faces should be on there for Zooming when we're at meetings. But everybody thought, no, it wasn't important. But this is very important, because this is $9,000, and we hear our constituents coming in here over the budget. And when they think that we're not coming to these meetings, and they're paying us, whether you donate your money, which, thank you, Alderman Lopez.
No, I didn't donate to her.
But I'm just saying, whether you donate it or not, you're still getting paid. And they expect you to be here, except for certain circumstances. Thank you very much.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When this was originally brought up, it was brought up by former Alderman T-Boom, and that was back in, I want to say it was 2009, and at the time, there was an alderman who nobody knew where he was, and he wasn't showing up to any meetings, and then all of a sudden we found out that he was actually in jail. And so, you know, I know at the time that Alderman T-Boom brought this up to make sure that, you know, people were attending the full board meetings, and the rationale was back then that you know, the full board meetings are the meetings where the vote counts, if you will. The committee meetings, we make recommendations. Yes, we do the work. Absolutely, they are important. But the final vote really is at the full board meeting. And so it was, you know, agreed at the time that this was an important step, and I agreed with it, and I supported it. The other time that I supported this was later on, when some colleagues wanted to add the maternity leave, and it was my suggestion to put in paternity leave as well as adoption leave to this, because I thought that was an important piece to recognize. And, you know, so I think what we have works. I think is vital for us to make sure that we are attending the full board meetings. I think the committee meetings are important, if not for the sense that that is where the work is done. However, it's not where the final decision is made. Final decision is made at the full board of aldermen. So, you know, if with, just as an example, where I'm dealing right now with my wife being extremely ill, I will make decisions as to which meetings I believe are more important for me to attend depending on what's going on with her health on any given day. So, as an example, I might decide that, you know, and it could be a last minute thing because you never know what's going to happen. with cancer. So, well, I'll decide, I could have every intention of going to a meeting and then something comes up, and so I decide, well, I'll watch the recap of what happened, and then from that, make a decision at the full board meeting, which, I will attend and try to make every effort to attend, I think if we were to, somebody in my situation or somebody who was dealing with significant illness, if we were to put this on them and every single time they had to, basically beg the president for an exception, I just think that, again, it's been said before, we are adults, we can police ourselves, and at the end of the day, it's my responsibility, or it's anybody's responsibility, to explain to the voters any questions they have. And if one of the questions they have is, why were you not at so many meetings, or this meeting or that meeting, I'll give them an answer, and if they like the answer, fine. If they don't have to vote for me. And that's kind of, I've always felt that way. I've always had that attitude. I've won elections, I've lost elections. It is what it is. But I am who I am. I know that there are several people on this board who, face different challenges that come up at different times. They might not be what somebody else thinks is an extenuating circumstance, because that definition could be different from one person to the next. So I say that we keep the current ordinance as it stands. It's something that I fully supported in the past, twice in the past, and I will continue to support it, but I will not support these changes this evening.
Are you okay if I do committee first? Alderman Tebow, then Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alderman Clemens said it well at the very end there. What's an extenuating circumstance? Like, who's going to decide what thing is more important than somebody else's stuff, right? To me, an extenuating circumstance can be much more, this way than what somebody else might think. And I think, Alderman Lopez said it exactly. And I'm one of the few board members that are still here that voted against the pay raise. I think most of them got either quit or got voted out, unfortunately, for some of them. But I voted against it, and now I'm going to take it because I need it like anybody else. But if I didn't get it, I would have been fine either way. I just thought at the time it wasn't the right time to do that. That being said, I think the money we get is more important than just being here in body. It's the work we do in our communities, it's the people we talk to. Whether I take a call on my lunch break, at work, or I send an email on my lunch at work that, in the middle of my day. Some of you may know I send out a newsletter. I don't think that's a shock to anyone in this room. So, that takes time. That's not something quick to send out. It's going to events. I go to a lot of events outside of just being in here. So the money is about doing the job of an alderman, which is more than just meetings. That doesn't say, I'm not saying people shouldn't show up for the meetings. They absolutely should when they can. But it is much more involved than just being here in the meeting. It's the research we do for the bills we put together. It's the questions we ask of the city staff. It's the times we come in here to talk to city staff. Alderman Johnson goes to a lot of meetings that she's not on the committee for. And I used to do a lot of that too, but it's hard to do. It's hard to get to everyone. There's one every night, pretty much, sometimes two. So I think, we all do what we think is appropriate for the job, and if our constituents don't think it's appropriate for them, then they'll vote us out, I'm sure. So, my thoughts.
Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, I just kind of want to revisit the stipends are over 9,000 refrain. It's not worth more because we got a raise. It's the same amount of time and energy that we're putting in. And I might be stepping on Alderman Clee's comments here, so sorry, but the purpose was to adjust the amount because when the last time it was adjusted before our most recent one, some aldermen were still using their flip phones, so it was way out of date. And the inflation increases, the compensation amount increases, and it was the will of the board at the time to do that. That didn't that wasn't a raise. We didn't get more money to do more things. It was a relative scaling. And the purpose of doing it the way that we did it when we did it was specifically to avoid politicizing it and to avoid future boards having to debate over whether or not they were going to give themselves a raise or whether some of them were now not moneyed enough individuals to be able to afford representing the community. So I just feel like we keep, some voices in the community keep claiming that that was a straight up raise. I don't feel like I got a promotion.
Alderman Clee?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few things to say, and I want to start with a comment about the reference to the alderman who missed meetings. The truth is, to the speaker who made that comment, you don't know why that person didn't make the meetings. You don't know if they had a health issue. You don't know if they had, as in the case of myself and Alderman Clemens, had a family member who was so ill that you couldn't leave them, or had a child care issue or anything else like that. So while the public wants to get on social media and complain and so on, there are HIPAA laws that they don't have to divulge that they're sick, and they don't have to divulge. They have to answer to their constituents, and if it's, as you pointed out, an at-large person, then they have to that. I think that we should not force anybody to have to do that. Also, I want to make a comment here about 3 meetings when it was the Board of Aldermen, when Alderman Tebow had put that in. That was just about 50% of the meetings. Considering the meetings, and I look at this here, and considering the meetings that we have, the special committee meetings that we have, and the meetings that you have, and if you're on like finance and joint special and infrastructure and so on like that, you can meet sometimes literally 4 days a week. And there are things that happen and that we can't do that. You're saying, okay, take all those meetings and now you can still only miss 3 meetings. I'm sorry, but that just does not equate out. And as was pointed out, the reason why we had these was because there was an alderman who was negligent and was arrested and was in jail for 6 months and didn't show up and didn't call, and there was no way of being able to get him. That's why Alderman Tebow put that in, and I agree with what he did. I think that we should be accountable to Board of Aldermen meetings, because that is when the final decision is made. And I agree with your comment about the work happens in the committee. But if there is a committee meeting that I could not make, trust me, I would be watching that. There are times that even committees that I'm not on, I'm walking my dog and listening to it. I try to be here through most of it. And based on this and yourself, you're here a lot. Does that mean you would deserve more money? No, we don't, because we don't look at it as if we're being paid for that. And to what my colleague Alderman Lopez had said, yes, we brought it up. It had not been moved in 25 years. And what we did was we looked at what the cost of living had gone, what the inflation was during that time, and we actually went down below it a little bit. And then we took the politics out of it and said we were going to attach it to the CPI so that it would not go 25 years, and then we sit here and debate and fight with people and so on. So to keep bringing up that we're now being paid $9,000 or a little bit more probably because of the CPI now, I think is kind of ridiculous. I was, like many here, I was up in the State House, and we got paid $100 a year, which was just a joke. I mean, we used to laugh and say, our business cards, our pins, and our license plates took away that $100, because we also pay taxes on that, just like we pay taxes on this money here. But that is not what this is about. This is about whether or not they should get paid. It's not about how much they're getting paid, because that has already been debated. And as Alderman Tebow had said, I too do a newsletter. I got my newsletter out at 2 a.m. This morning, because it takes me 6 to 7 hours to write that newsletter, to put all the information, to put all the links to all the committees, and so on. It's an exhausting type of work that we do here. I come to a lot of meetings because this is how I learn, and this is how I'm able to speak as I am doing right now. And I think that's what's really important. I think to the current one, it says extenuating circumstances for the absence. are we going to, and we put that in specifically because we didn't want to list every potential circumstance. And I think that that works well enough. I don't think that you just say 3 meetings of specials and regular and so on and so forth, because then if that's the case, I want extra credit for the meetings they show up at, just in case I can't make those other meetings. So we'll have to have a little bit of a ticket type thing. But again, it was created for an alderman who was arrested. It was rightly so put in. It does hold us accountable. I wish more people would show up at meetings. I have been at meetings that there wasn't quorum. And the truth is, you know what the majority of those meetings were? They were joint meetings with the police commissioners. If we had one Board of Aldermen that couldn't make it, we would have quorum because they'd only send 1 out of their 3 commissioners. If, God forbid, there were 2, and to be honest with you, one of the aldermen who often comes in from Zoom because he has to work was on that committee. He didn't make quorum. We had to commit meetings. My husband was so sick, and I couldn't make those meetings. They didn't have quorum, and it was because they would only send 1 of their 3 people. Truthfully, I had a little bit of a meltdown and demanded that they start sending more. Now they send 2. But in any case, I think that if we start having these issues, then we could talk about it. But to say 3 of all the meetings that we have, I mean, I look at this and technically there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meetings in 4 days. If you happen to be on those particular committees, it can be very frustrating. It can be very frustrating to have to constantly, and just special meetings alone. When I was on the Board of Aldermen, when I first started, and probably the same thing for you, Alderman Johnson, we never had as many special Board of Aldermen meetings like we do now. And the reason why we have so many special Board of Aldermen meetings is because we're trying to be as transparent as possible and trying to do as much discussion and education and so on to the public as well as to ourselves. It's just truly impossible. And while I did run and I am here, I don't think it's fair to speak to others that, perhaps work out of town and can't make it, That could be an extenuating circumstance. So I think it's kind of, and I feel bad for the way I'm going to say this. I think it's ridiculous to expect that we can only miss 3 meetings of all of the meetings that we go to within a quarter, when the previous standard was 50%. So, thank you.
Any additional comment? Alderman Johnson.
Thank you very much. I remember when I was on the board the first time, we had a member that didn't come to a lot of meetings, and that's when this whole discussion started, because he would not show up to meetings. And, again, you're expected to be here, you have to work, you have to do things. I come to as many meetings as I can, and I work during the day, and by the time I get home, I'm running in, eating, and I'm out the door. But that's what I ran for, because I wanted to give back, and I felt that, I guess, I could give some thoughts and try to get some of my views on here on the board, but it's okay. I know it's going to probably be indefinitely postponed. That's how I figure it's going to go. Thank you very much.
The motion is to recommend final passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
All right, Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman Tebow is a no. Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman at large Ben Clements.
No.
Alderman at large, Alderwoman at large Shoshana Kelly.
No.
We have 4 noes and 1 yea. It fails.
Do you have a motion, Alderman Clements?
Motion to recommend indefinite postponement.
Clerk, roll.
All right, Alderman Thomas Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow's a yes. Alderman Johnson.
No.
Alderman at large Clements.
Yes.
And Alderwoman at large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes.
It's postponed 4-1.
All right. I have not been notified that anything's coming off the table. So
I'd like to take
public
something
comment.
off the table.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to take something off the table.
You can make the motion.
I'd like to move that take from the table O-26-002.
You've heard the motion. Discussion? I'm not going to support taking it off the table because we have asked in the past for people to give us enough heads up so that the public can be here to weigh in. We also have 6 pages of new documentation that was handed to us at the beginning of this meeting that I have not been able to look through, so I will not be taking this off the table. I will not be voting to take it off the table. The committee can do what they would like.
Excuse me? I didn't understand what you said. I didn't hear you.
Did I not speak clearly enough? Generally, when we have something on the table, we are notified as the chair when it's coming off so that the public can come and speak to it, so that it's not suddenly they're unable to speak to it. You also handed us 2 new handouts that we just got. So I'm not ready to take this off the table.
I'd like to speak on it, please.
You can't speak on a table. And truthfully,
Well, we're still talking about removing. She can speak.
Yeah, it's taking it off, not putting it on.
oh, okay, I apologize. Yes, you're right.
Thank
You
you.
can, yes, I apologize.
I found this information last night, and I brought it in. I wasn't thinking about taking it off the table until like around 1 o'clock in the morning. And I think with all the new federal regulations, if you read this, mandate for participation, ADA for disabled, to participate in public meeting via Zoom. This is new information, and now if you listen to any shows, if you, I guess the Granite Rock I'll use as an example, if there's an article, it's now video. It's in voice mode, because this is now the federal government for the hearing impaired and the visually impaired. And this does not cover any HIPAA, which there was no HIPAA violations to begin with. I've talked to the medical profession, and I went back to Attorney Clark. So I will lay it back on the table till next month to give everybody a chance to read this, because this is now from the federal government.
So you're rescinding your motion to take it off the table?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Madam
Alderman
Chair.
Clemens, go ahead.
Just a point of personal privilege. I missed the beginning of the meeting. Did we accept and place on file those documents?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have them either, or
Oh,
Alderman
okay,
Clemens.
okay. I just wanted the opportunity to be able to look at them.
Sure.
But I didn't know if we had accepted them,
I'll
because I
make sure
missed
there's
that part.
a set at your desk, or we can send it electronically tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll give them to Donna, so.
Okay, thank you.
All set. Okay, public comment? Name and town, please.
Katie Lamar. I own a shop on 100 Main Street. I know when we spoke about secondhand dealer laws, I kind of wanted to just like touch on like some of the security things that go on. So the community integrity behind the collectibles market is massive, and I don't think the public has a great understanding of this. Just the other day, I literally read a Reddit post about an individual who lost a $10,000 Magic the Gathering deck at an airport, and it was actually recovered because there was another Reddit post about 3 hours later describing that exact deck in the deck box that it was in. The community speaks. Not only do players speak on those kind of platforms, but we as store owners, we're also lurking on those platforms. So in terms of security and stolen stuff, we're pretty aware of what is missing. And even the network, just stores calling other stores, things like that, that is there. I also did want to put like some ease of mind as well. We have a very thorough like take-in form sheet. Like we take everything down, their driver's license, their address, a phone number to call them in case, it takes forever, their name. So it's not like, there is no record keeping to this. Hell, I had to turn in the records of a gentleman to the Nashua PD a couple weeks ago because he was caught stealing from one game store, and he essentially is now on charge for theft of money from me. So do keep in mind that we are being like really diligent on this end as well. It's not like we're just like, cool, nice card, here's $10 kind of thing. We are very much keeping records and keeping track of who is coming through our stores, and you can kind of tell the people with the suspicious behavior as well that are just kind of there to make a quick buck. So I do just want to put that as like a ease of mind point, that this stuff is already happening. Some of it is because of how the law is written, but some of it also is just for us for record keeping, and I think my accountant would like to know how much I'm spending, or not, Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Lori Ortolano, Nashua. You know, I have a question for you about your approval of members of the Ethics Committee. I wrote an email to the board maybe a little while ago, and I noticed the Ethics Chair, Tim Bush, his term expired January of '26. And he was not renewed by your board, but Weissman was renewed. He came in, he also expired January of '26. And he came in, or his resume was brought in. I don't know if he actually showed up for the interview because he was already appointed. But he was renewed and now has a new, I believe, 3-year term is what they run on. So we had our ethics meeting, which was, you know, this 30-day hearing was now 8.5 months old. And when they did the roll call, they only called 4 members. There's 5 on the city website. So my question to you, are there 5 ethics committee members, and is Attorney Bush still a member? And why didn't you renew him? And when, you know, it was unique because when they did the roll call vote at the meeting last Thursday, they didn't call his name out. So usually if you don't call somebody's name out, they're not a member. But he's on the sheet. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I will tell you, I see a tremendous lack of transparency in that committee. And if Attorney Bush is gone, nobody would be happier than me. I can't tell you how concerned I am about his lack of the right to know law policy, his subversion to absolutely not put things in writing so that you can't find it through a right to know request. And I never met a more gender-biased man in my life. Working with him for 3 years and watching my petitions be kicked out for 4 months, 5 months, this one 8.5 months, when all other men who have brought petitions in since 2017 had their petitions or their complaints heard within 30 days. I don't understand it. I don't care how much you don't like me. This complaint, which involved Derek, and I think he's just as frustrated, and perhaps he blames me for it, but the committee had an obligation to hear it. And it's a committee you picked. And on Thursday night, the 3 new members nominated Weissman to be the chair,
30
who couldn't
seconds.
come to the meeting. He has had terrible attendance. Why are you, I don't know why they're picking a guy. You have roughly, this commitment for the ERC is 5 meetings a year. Not a heavy lift. And Weissman couldn't make 3? And you've picked him as chair? Why did you put him back on? If he couldn't come in September, he couldn't come in December, and he can't come in May, why is he here? And now he's chairing. So if somebody could get me
Time.
answers instead of me filing right to knows, I would really prefer that. Thank you.
I don't see any additional public general discussion. Any remarks by Alderman? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
You've heard the motion. We need to take it by roll.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes?
Alderman Tebow's a yes. Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman at Large Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly.
Yes, and we are adjourned at 9:10. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.